Elizabeth Taylor revealed the 6 women she had an affair with. Elizabeth Taylor lived her life like one of her epic films. Grand, passionate, and filled with dramatic twists that kept the world captivated for decades. The violet-eyed beauty, who married 8 times to 7 different men, cultivated an image as Hollywood's ultimate seductress of men. From her scandalous affair with Ed Pfizer to her tempestuous relationships with Richard Burton. But behind this carefully crafted public narrative lay a more complex truth about Taylor's intimate life. One that Hollywood publicists, studio executives, and Taylor herself kept carefully hidden from public view for most of her career. As the years have passed since her death in 2011, biographers, historians, and those who knew her personally have begun revealing a more complete picture of Taylor's romantic history. One that includes significant relationships with women as well as men. Elizabeth was far more complicated than the man-hungry screen siren the studios marketed, revealed a former MGM publicist who worked closely with Taylor during her peak years. Her appetites for love, for connection, for passion couldn't be confined to the narrow boundaries of what was considered acceptable for a female star in that era. This more nuanced understanding of Taylor's sexuality has emerged through decades of research, confidential interviews with those in her inner circle, and the gradual relaxation of the ironclad secrecy that once governed Hollywood's treatment of its stars' private lives. What has become increasingly clear is that Taylor's romantic history included significant relationships with women, connections that ranged from brief, passionate encounters to deeper emotional attachments. Elizabeth didn't see love in terms of categories or labels, explained a close friend who knew Taylor for over 4 decades. She fell in love with people who intrigued her, who matched her intensity, who weren't afraid of her power. Sometimes those people were men. Sometimes they weren't. Today, we explore the most significant of these relationships. 6 women who shared private intimacy with one of Hollywood's most public figures, illuminating a side of Elizabeth Taylor that adds new dimensions to our understanding of a woman who, even in death, continues to fascinate us with her complexity, her contradictions, and her refusal to live by anyone's rules but her own. Elizabeth Taylor's relationships with women reveal far more than just additional chapters in her romantic history. They provide crucial insight into the extraordinary complexity of a woman who lived her life on a grand scale while navigating the oppressive restrictions of her era. In a Hollywood where even a hint of same-sex attraction could end careers instantly, Taylor's private exploration of relationships with women represented not just personal desire, but a form of rebellion against the constraints placed on female stars. These relationships, long hidden behind carefully constructed public narratives about her marriages and affairs with famous men, offer a more complete portrait of a woman whose appetites for love, for experience, for authentic connection were as outsized as her legendary beauty and talent. There will be no Thursday for us next week or any other week. I won't let it happen. I'll tear it out of the calendar. The enigmatic connection. Greta Garbo. Of all Elizabeth Taylor's alleged relationships with women, perhaps none has intrigued Hollywood historians more than her rumored affair with the notoriously private Greta Garbo, these 2 icons of different Hollywood eras. Garbo, the mysterious Swedish siren of the 1930s. Taylor, the violated beauty of the 1950s, seem at first glance unlikely companions. Yet, according to multiple biographers and industry insiders, their paths crossed in the early 1950s, leading to a brief but intense connection. She wanted mystery. Elizabeth wanted danger. They gave each other both, explained film historian Margaret Collins, who has spent decades researching Hollywood's hidden LGBTQ history. Garbo was the ultimate enigma, someone who had walked away from fame at its peak. For a young Elizabeth Taylor, still very much under the thumb of the studio system, Garbo represented a kind of freedom she hadn't yet experienced herself. By the time they allegedly met in 1953, Garbo was in her late 40s and had been living in self-imposed retirement for over a decade. Taylor, barely in her 20s, was at the height of her MGM stardom, but increasingly frustrated by the studio's control over her image and personal life. According to those familiar with their relationship, the 2 women were introduced at a small private gathering at the home of director George Cukor, known for hosting discreet social events where Hollywood's closeted stars could relax away from public scrutiny. Cukor's Sunday afternoons were legendary in certain circles, noted Collins. For someone like Garbo, who guarded her privacy fiercely, these gatherings were rare occasions where she felt comfortable. For Taylor, they offered glimpses of a more authentic Hollywood than the one MGM presented to the public. What reportedly began as mutual curiosity developed into something deeper. According to multiple sources, Taylor and Garbo were seen alone together at several private retreats in the months following their initial meeting. A former caretaker at an estate in OG, California, claimed that the two women spent a week there in the summer of 1953, requesting absolute privacy. Garbo was reclusive, private, and long rumored to prefer women, said Collins. What made the connection with Taylor different was the contrast between them. Garbo's Nordic reserve versus Elizabeth's passionate temperament, the fading legend, and the ascendant star. What drew these seemingly opposite women together? According to those who knew them, part of the attraction lay in their shared experience of being objectified by the Hollywood machine. Garbo having escaped it, Taylor still struggling within its constraints. They were both women whose physical beauty had been commodified by studios from a very young age, explained biographer Patricia Morrison. Both understood the strange experience of being treated as visual property rather than complex human beings. The alleged affair was reportedly brief, but significant for both women. For Garbo, it represented a rare moment of connection after years of self-imposed isolation. For Taylor, it offered a glimpse of possibilities beyond the conventional relationships the studios had orchestrated for her. Elizabeth would later say that Garbo taught her that privacy wasn't just something you protected, it was something you created. Claimed a longtime member of Taylor's household staff that there could be parts of yourself you never shared with the world. While neither woman ever publicly confirmed the relationship, the persistence of accounts from multiple credible sources suggests that this connection, however brief, represented a significant moment in Taylor's emotional and sexual development. It established a pattern that would continue throughout her life of seeking authentic connection beyond the boundaries of convention, regardless of gender. Hello, Mr. Harris. The rivals embrace Marilyn Monroe. Throughout the 1950s, the Hollywood press manufactured a rivalry between Elizabeth Taylor and Marilyn Monroe, casting them as opposing archetypes of feminine allure. Monroe was the blonde bombshell, the sex symbol whose overt sensuality masked her intelligence. Taylor was the dark-haired classic beauty, the lady whose refined elegance concealed her smoldering passions. The studios encouraged this perceived competition, understanding that nothing sold tickets like the suggestion of animosity between two of the screen's most desirable women. They were rivals in public. In private, they were wrapped around each other, claimed a former makeup artist who worked with both women during this era. The public saw what the studios wanted them to see: two women competing for the same spotlight. The reality was far more complex and frankly far more interesting. According to multiple Hollywood historians and insiders, Taylor and Monroe shared more than just the burden of overwhelming fame and objectification. They allegedly shared a brief, but intense intimate relationship that both women took great pains to keep hidden from the public eye. Marilyn was the only person who ever made Elizabeth blush, revealed a longtime member of Taylor's household staff. And I saw Elizabeth through 3 husbands during my time with her. She was never easily flustered, except when Marilyn would call. Then she'd become like a schoolgirl, all nervous energy and excitement. Their connection reportedly began at a private party in 1955 when both women were at the height of their fame. According to those familiar with the event, Taylor and Monroe, who had previously maintained a cordial but distant relationship in public, found themselves alone in a quiet corner of the gathering, away from the constant observation that characterized their public lives. Both deeply insecure, both over-sexualized, and both drawn to forbidden relationships, noted celebrity biographer Thomas Henderson. They recognized something in each other that few others could understand: the peculiar isolation of being desired by millions, but truly known by almost no one. What made the alleged relationship particularly poignant was how it contradicted the studio-manufactured rivalry. While the press pitted them against each other as competitors, Taylor and Monroe supposedly found in each other a rare understanding and acceptance that their public lives rarely allowed. Elizabeth was fascinated by Marilyn's vulnerability, by the contrast between her public image and her private self, explained a former assistant to Monroe. And Marilyn was drawn to Elizabeth's strength, her ability to calm